Hi Eunice, hi Maïmouna.
Hi, Natasha. Hi, Maïmouna.
How are you all doing?
Good,
Hi,
good. And yourself?
Well, good, thank you.
I'm fine.
Great
Hi,
to hear.
Ellie. How are you?
Okay, so Maïmouna,
Oh my God.
let me just check that your camera is working as well.
Yeah, did you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you turn your camera on, please, just for now?
Yeah, it's okay.
You can turn it off after we check, but just for now, I want to make sure everything's working.
No translation.
Not yet. So we'll put the interpretation on at your presentation, so at 10 to 3.
Okay.
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 And can you put your camera on, please?
Yeah, let me try.
Okay.
Is it okay?
Yes. Can't see you very well, but I think maybe the lighting is not great.
Yeah, let me check the room. Yeah,
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
it's
So
better.
I can see, yeah, I can see you well. And you can turn it off now. So we'll wait for Gertrude to come on and Andrea as well. And then we will start at
Yeah.
2 p.m. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Natasha. The facility for interpretation is not enabled.
Hi, Andrea. Yeah, so we'll enable it as soon as Maïmouna presents. Otherwise, we'll have to keep changing everyone to English.
Are you sure about that? Because I thought you could only do it when you start.
No, it works. It was working for us when we tried it earlier. So I can start it at any time, basically. I can start it right now or I can start it later.
Okay. And I'm not quite sure what the reason is for not starting it now.
So Gertrude's speaking in English. I mean, we could, but the problem is that with the original language, there's no sound. So you would have to choose to speak in one of the languages as well. And when we were testing it out, for some reason, if we didn't have Eunice on French and Maïmouna on, I'm sorry, Eunice on English and Maïmouna on French, Maïmouna could hear Eunice at the same time. So we had to keep it separate.
Okay, but Eunice is going to be speaking in English, right?
Yes.
Okay. So there only will be translation to English. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
And if people ask a question in French?
So Jeanne will translate the questions by typing. And Eunice, if Maïmouna responds in French, Eunice will type the responses out in English into the chat.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not going to speak the responses in English.
Actually, we haven't covered that option yet. Maïmouna, would you like to respond to questions in English or in French?
Yeah, in French, I think.
Okay. Is that all right, Andrea?
It's fine as long as the translation works and I'm able to explain to people how it works. That's fine.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll explain it from the beginning and then you'll enable it when we do question 2.
Correct. Yes. So participants must basically either choose English or French, depending on what their preference is.
Okay. I've got to step out for a minute and
Okay.
then I'll be back.
Okay, sure. Thanks.
So Natasha, you will let me know as well when I need to start the interpretation. Hi, Natasha, can you hear me?
Welcome if you're joining us for today's discussion. Will start at the top of the hour. In the meantime, if you could introduce yourself with your name, organization, and country in the chat. And you can also vote which stakeholder group you represent by clicking on the link in the chat, going to Mentimeter, or you can go to mentimeter.com. And thank you. Natasha, my video doesn't work. If you could enable it, please.
Hi, it should work now.
Okay, so you can see me now. Great. Thank you for those of you who are introducing yourselves in the chat. Please do click on the link. Natasha, could you post the Mentimeter link again? If people have joined, they won't have access to it. So if you click on the Menti link, it should take you to menti.com, and then you can vote which stakeholder group you represent. We're still waiting for one of our presenters, is that correct?
Yes, we're waiting for Gertrude to join. I'm just busy trying to get hold of her.
Okay, thank you. I see we'll start in a minute. Thank you again for those of you who are introducing yourselves with your name, organization, and country. I see it's the top of the hour. We'll just wait another minute to let people join. And if you have joined, please do introduce yourself with your name, organization, and country. Natasha, perhaps you can post the Menti link again. For those of you who would like to indicate which stakeholder group you come from, you can either go to menti.com and put in the code, or you can click on the link that's in the chat. Welcome to those of you who are joining, and thank you for introducing yourselves with your name, organization, and country, and also for indicating on the screen which stakeholder group you represent by clicking on the Menti link. I see that we're still missing one presenter. Natasha, are you having any luck getting hold of her?
Hi, Andrea. Yes, I just got hold of her. She should be joining shortly.
Okay, then we'll go ahead and begin. So hello to all of you, and welcome to the University of Cape Town's Pesticide Discussion Forum. I am Professor Ndeye Rother. I'm head of the Environmental Health Division at the University of Cape Town here in South Africa, and I will be your facilitator today. And we have two esteemed presenters who will be taking us through a discussion on the impact of gender inequality on hazardous pesticide exposures. So before we get started, just to say I've introduced myself, as well as Natasha Lalou, who's in the background, who's with me at the University of Cape Town. If you have any issues or technical problems, please click on the link to join the WhatsApp group, or go to the WhatsApp group and you'll receive assistance. The Pesticide Discussion Forum is supported by funding from Sweden through the Swedish Chemicals Agency, ChemE. And the purpose of our discussion forum is to bring together representatives from different regions and different sectors and different stakeholder groups to really foster a mutually supporting consortium that focuses on various issues related to pesticides. And of course, today we're looking at a very important issue of gender and how to bring gendered issues into pesticide and pesticide management. In the discussion forum, we also try to build the capacity of regulators and researchers and NGOs in low and middle income countries, and to discuss emerging issues related to pesticide use. And we hope to achieve this by sharing information and ideas and identifying gaps and problem solving together. And really with a view to a toxic-free future for the next generation. So just to remind you, or if you're new, this is not a webinar, but rather a chat. And we therefore encourage all of you to join the discussion in the chat. So it won't be, we won't be taking verbal questions from participants, but you can put your responses in the chat. And today we will be having one of the presentations in French. So there will be translation enabled at that stage for you. And you're also welcome to ask questions in French or in English. Just remember, this is a non-partisan group and that we respect each other's viewpoints, although we might not agree with everyone. When you do make a response, it helps if you put your country or organization that you're representing, because that helps the presenters. So the flow today is that we will have 2 presentations linked to 2 questions, and each question will also have 3 poll questions. And I encourage you to get familiar with Mentimeter so that you're able to respond to those questions. Next slide, please. So we have 2 presenters today. We have Gertrude Kenyangi, who is from Support for Women in Agriculture and the Environment. And she has over 20 years of work experience in the hands-on application of agroecology practices for sustainable agriculture and forest and biodiversity conservation in Uganda. She holds multiple degrees and also has been very involved in international organizations. And Gertrude, when you come on, I'm going to encourage you to just give a brief introduction of yourself. Our second speaker will be Maïmouna Diene, who will, as I said, speak in French, and she's from the Pesticide Action Network located in Senegal, so the African Pesticide Action Network. But welcome to both of you. Thank you very much for taking your time. I'm going to hand over to Gertrude for taking us through her presentation for the first question. Gertrude, you can turn on your video and your mic. I hand over to you. You're most welcome, and please, any other introduction you would like to give of yourself, please do. Thank you. So we can see you, but we can't hear you. Nata, oh, there you go. Perfect.
Okay.
Welcome. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. My name is Gertrude Kenyangi. I work with Support for Women in Agriculture and Environment. It is a community-based organization based in Uganda, but it has linkages with organizations in the region and on the continent and also globally. We've been working in sustainable agriculture for over 20 years, and we've accumulated a lot of experience that we'd like to share. Thank you very much. My role here is to make a presentation on why are women at greater risk of hazardous pesticide exposure. Kindly give me the second slide, the background. Yeah, okay. Well, health is defined as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity by World Health Organization. We all know that not everyone around the world, no, on our planet, is in good health. One of the reasons for this are massive gender inequalities manifesting in every dimension of sustainable development and especially in agriculture. The size of the global chemical industry is projected to double by 2030. Consequently, there is a growing concern for people working in pesticide-intensive sectors, such as agriculture. With calls for greater liberty for women to work in the public sphere, as we gain traction in gender equality, women are increasingly working in industrial agriculture, such as flower farms, monocrops such as tea plantations, where large quantities of pesticides are used. Yet, they rarely receive basic training about the pesticides and herbicides they use, which increase their vulnerability to health risks. Women are the most responsible for producing flowers in the global south, where large amounts of pesticides are used. This constitutes gender-specific inequalities when it comes to the handling of the pesticides. We expect global sales of pesticides and herbicides to double. If we want to effectively tackle the negative impacts of these hazardous pesticides on humans and the environment, and especially their disproportionate effect on women, we need to take action now. The correlation between these inequalities and pesticide safety is addressed in this presentation. Next slide, please. Chemical exposure becomes a gender issue owing to positioning of men and women on account of their gender. Gender stereotypes have restricted women and men in feminized and masculinized sectors of activity, which is also referred to as horizontal segregation. This is also true where women and men have the same job, but perform different tasks. In addition, men are more likely to work in jobs higher up in the occupational hierarchy, where they are part of decision-making and earn a much better income than women, who are likely to have low-paying part-time or temporary contracts with no decision-making power. And this is referred to as vertical segregation.
Gertrude, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Your papers seem to be covering your speaker. And so as you're moving your papers, we're getting quite a lot of noise, feedback, and we sometimes can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Very sorry. I think it's also to do with the place where I'm seated, the wind.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, if you're just careful with moving over the microphone, that helps a lot. Thank you.
Okay. So did you hear about the vertical segregation, where men are more likely to work in jobs higher up in the occupational hierarchy, where they are part of decision-making and earn a much better income than women, who are likely to have low-paying part-time jobs with no decision-making power. Hence, gender segregation at the same workplace strongly contributes to an unequal distribution of working conditions and exposure to different physical and psychological risks between sexes, also in the same workplace. It determines the different bargaining positions of both men and women, the different abilities to exercise their agency. Job segregation strongly contributes to different pesticide exposure and consequently to different health outcomes. Take slide number 3, please. Oh, I've already gone through that one. And the next slide. As such, men can afford to purchase protective gear like gloves, masks, gumboots, while women handle dangerous chemicals bare knuckle. Even if women could afford protective wear, there's another dangerous chemical-related gender disparity. I'm sorry about the background noise. There's another workshop going on in the same hotel. Across the world, work equipment, tools, and personal protective equipment have been traditionally designed for the male body size. As a result, women face challenges finding suitable and comfortable personal protective equipment because they do not conform to a standard male worker model. Uncomfortable work equipment and tools can lead to poor working posture, leading to an increased risk of musculoskeletal disorders. To date, studies on which much of our understanding of occupational risk is based have been performed on men, excluding women. It has only recently been defined that gender-related biological differences may result in differential vulnerability of women and men to physical workplace factors such as hazardous substances and biological agents. Not all vulnerability is skewed against women, however. Gender discrimination could also influence the collection of useful data. For example, special attention has always been given to women exposed to chemicals that could be hazardous to their reproductive health, while this has been little emphasized in men. Although many chemical agents could also damage the sperm production and motility. Next slide, please. Next slide. What can be done? We need to conduct gender mainstreaming studies and generate sex disaggregated data in pesticide-intensive agriculture sector. We need to be gender responsive and equal opportunity employers in the chemical-intensive agriculture sector. There needs to be reforms in the fashion industry to design protective wear for both men and women. We need to improve gender-responsive collection and analysis of data in a sex-disaggregated manner on occupational health and pesticide exposure. Thank you very much for listening to me and for the opportunity.
Thank you, Gertrude. You very succinctly went through some of the key issues that impact women when using pesticides. And I have a few questions, but I think before I ask my own, it would be nice if we open up to the group. So why are women at greater risk of hazardous pesticide exposures? We ask you to give your thoughts in the chat, and we will also have a poll question. So why do you think women are at greater risk of pesticide exposure, particularly hazardous pesticides? So if you put your comments in the chat, and Gertrude, you're welcome to respond to the comments that you see in the chat. We don't have any at the moment.
Okay.
So women generally don't wear pants due to cultural practices was one of the issues that was raised. So I don't know if you want to comment on that many women have to wear dresses or culturally, and even if protective equipment was provided, that often they won't wear trousers. Not sure if you'd like to respond to that. You're muted, Gertrude. Gertrude, would you like to unmute yourself and respond to the question?
Okay. In fact, I think this is just an observation or a contribution. Women usually handle pesticides more, and then there's something to do with pants. Women generally don't wear pants due to cultural practices. That may be true in certain circumstances, but that is wearing thin because women now are wearing pants. But the issue is that the fashion industry has made standard male protective wear. Their protective wear that they put out is not gender responsive. So you find that a woman is wearing boots that are designed for men, or even overalls that are designed for men, or gloves that are designed for men, and these are uncomfortable. So they're not comfortable to work with, so women put them off and work bare because they need the money, they work with their bare hands, since it's very uncomfortable for them to work with clothes that don't fit them. Okay, so another question. Yeah. Women usually handle pesticides more. Yeah, it's a great observation. And then have no access to, yeah, true. Women do not, on average, women are the ones who walk into a workplace without protective wear because usually they cannot afford them. In that you do the same work with the man, but you are paid less. So that one also is a gender issue. Okay, women are generally more exposed due to psychological factors and hormonal cycles. Here I would like to comment that it's not that they are more exposed due to psychological factors and hormonal cycles. Rather, the exposure causes hormones to be disrupted, the hormone cycle to be disrupted. Then looking at women's biological, if they are not pregnant, they are ovulating or breastfeeding, so they become more vulnerable to pesticides. True. Pesticides tend to interfere with the women's cycles. Women may store more chemicals in their body. Yes. Due to different fat concentration. Yeah. In fact, I've been preaching to the converted because all the questions that you're asking are mainly observations and they're enriching my presentation. Now, like this person who's made an observation on fat tissue. Yeah, that is what I mean. Pesticides interfere. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so majority are not even questions, they're observations, which are correct. Thank you.
Thanks. So what we've done is posted the first poll, which is an open-ended poll. Again, if you go to Mentimeter or you click on mentimeter.com, that is in the chat. So what are the pathways or factors that contribute to women's higher exposure risks? And some of you have been covering some of these, and feel free to post them in the poll. And Gertrude, you're welcome to respond to those as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I assume you can see that. So first factor is gender inequality that's being mentioned that contributes to women's higher exposure risk.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Women are more vulnerable in relation to their morphology. I don't see any question. I just see observations.
Yes, and you're more than welcome to comment on the observations. As you will see, people are posting now in the poll that's on the screen.
Yeah, yes.
But it's also good if you comment on the observations if you feel they are adequate or not?
Yeah. In many agricultural communities, women are more likely to be involved in farming. Yeah, they come in contact with the pesticides more frequently than the men. That's true. Field application also have additional exposures like harvesting. Yes, it's repeated. I mean, being at risk every time, more frequently, because of their gender roles. Involved in subsistence farming, harvesting. Yes, majority of the observations are really about the frequency with which women are in touch with the hazardous pesticides. And that's true. It's a good observation. Women happen to, okay, what are the pathways? Biological factors, gender inequality, yeah. Yes, like I pointed out, they work in the lower echelons, the lower, level of the workplace, while the men are in decision making. And when you're working at the bottom of the ladder, you are more likely to be where the pesticides where application of pesticide happens, where mixing of pesticide happens, where where you are likely to inhale or even get contaminated. Yes, smallholder farming is usually undertaken by rural women. Yes. Washing contaminated. Yes. And even when they are not the ones contaminated, but they are the ones washing clothes for men at home in the care economy. And they are quite, that one, I love it very much. They are contaminated. Oh my.
Gertrude, you've muted yourself, I think, because of the noise.
Yeah, because of the hooting.
Yeah.
And those are hooting from far, not from here, within the compound. So I can't stop them. Okay, there's a very interesting question here. You mentioned in your presentation that there's a need for sex disaggregated data. Whose responsibility do you think it is to provide this data? Well, the actors in the field. I think, oh my goodness, this one is deliberate. I think everyone is responsible. The workers may not generate the data themselves, but the companies that employ them, the state should enforce it. The state is a duty bearer. So as a duty bearer, they should protect the citizens. They should educate them, give them information concerning the pesticides, and also require companies that are doing this kind of agriculture to do that sex disaggregation, so with the intention of decision making, for informing themselves. If you are going to get protective wear, and then you have to get protective wear for women and for men. If you are going to let them work with pesticides, they've got to be properly, protected, properly dressed. When you get this information, you can make informed decisions. So it's important that the state enforces it, because I see it in the environment. Before you can build a house or do anything in a certain area like a forest or whatever, you've got to make an environmental impact assessment. It's a requirement of that person that's going to do the intervention. So by the same token, the companies that are involved in industrial agriculture and using chemicals should be required as a corporate responsibility to facilitate the generation of this data. That's my thinking. Okay. Okay, I think that's it. I don't see any new ones. So someone said, so do you think government should require companies submit sex disaggregated data in the ecotox and toxicology data submitted with the application for each pesticide? Well, not each pesticide, but all you can, you can, the exposure is to all these pesticides. The government can require the companies, or you see, the companies usually pay tax. A certain amount of tax can be generated to facilitate experts, like from the schools of gender, from the Ministry of Gender, to conduct the studies and get disaggregated data. So it's a responsibility for government and for the companies. And the responsibility for the workers is that they wear their protective clothing to minimize the exposure. Thank you.
Thanks, Gertrude. Do you want to respond to any of the, it's disappeared, there we go. Do you want to respond to any of the comments in the first poll before we move on to the next poll?
I've almost responded to all because
Okay,
I was aggregating them.
good.
Those
Then
that are
we'll,
the same,
perfect. We'll
Laura,
move
those are
on to
same.
the second
Yeah.
poll then. So
Okay.
what are some strategies that can be implemented to address gender inequality in relation to pesticide exposure? So again, if you post your comments on mentimeter.com, you can also continue to post any questions you might have in the chat. Okay, so what are some of the strategies that can be implemented? Education. I think it would be good to unpack education. Do you mean in primary school, secondary school? Do you mean training of women when they're already working as farmers, as the second one says? Policy, what kind of policy would be good to know? Targeting which government department, as we know many different government departments are involved in regulating pesticides. And I hand back over to you, Gertrude.
Oh, okay. Well, education, like you've pointed out, needs to be unpacked. It has training, it has awareness. Okay, there's people who are already unpacking it. Increase women's access to information and training on pesticide safety. That's true. Awareness and training of disaggregation of teams, identifying the differences. That's true. Include gender-based rights. Yeah, education, raising awareness, training. Yeah. So the education component is very, very important. It's an important strategy, especially when it is unpacked, so that information, access to information is not discriminatory, even women, and the information is delivered in a way that can be easily absorbed, like in local languages. For those who can't read or write, good images that communicate, you know? So it's the way that and then you can use different tricks, different tools. You can use the radio, you can use the TV for those that have access. Yeah. Reduce women's workload in pesticide intensive industries. I don't know whether that would work. Reducing women's workload. I don't think that reduce women's workload in pesticide-intensive industries. Well, I don't think you can really do that because women need their jobs. But it's better to protect the women, so that they can work in that area also. Ensure policies can identify the disaggregation factor that can protect women workers. Yes. Increase women's access to decision making on all levels of decision making. In all agriculture and economic environments, farmer groups, importers, vendors, awareness creation on the impact of women pesticide exposure on the entire family when the woman is exposed. Yeah, awareness creation is a very good tool. Reduce women's workload in pesticide-intensive industries. I don't agree. I need to be convinced because you can't reduce women's workload in pesticide-intensive industries. We are always saying that what men can do, women can do. So what works for men should work for women. What I think, they should be given protective wear and proper information and training to be able to work in that space. Involve women decision making. Yes, true. Equal salaries. Yeah. Women need to have the same salaries with men for the same job done, so that all of them are competitive on the market when they need to buy protective wear or anything. So, okay, education and aware, support research and data collection on gender specific. Yes, research needs to be supported. Ensure PPE is disaggregated for men and women. Yes, true. Overcome gender inequalities regarding at all levels. Yes, that's true. Very true. Gender inequalities in education have denied women something to bargain with. Have denied women a fallback position. Have denied women, something. When you are not educated properly, there is a way that you are cheated. You cannot, when the men have more information than you, then they make better decisions. Yes. And identify the disaggregation. Okay. Yeah. Majority of them are repeating themselves. I think we have answered because now we are going up. Okay.
There is one that was missed. So I think, Natasha, just go down a bit. It's on the right-hand side. It starts with getting people to wear PPE. I think that's an important comment that someone made.
Getting people who apply pesticides to wear PPE is complex and hard. To protect women, we need to move to the top of the hierarchy of control and eliminate yeah, there are some truths and some things I don't agree with. But I agree with this one, eliminate highly hazardous pesticides. Those need to be eliminated. But getting people who apply pesticides to wear PPE is complex. I don't agree. If they are measured and fitted properly, and they don't just go out and buy those that are meant for men, then they'll be able to work in those PPE. To protect women, we need to move to the top of the hierarchy. No, that again is not good for gender equality. Like I've said, we've already said what women can do, men can do. Before long, if you do that, men will be complaining that you are marginalizing them. So the best thing is to give the women PPE that fits them. And then when they are interviewed for jobs, those that are fit to be in the top of the hierarchy are employed in the top. Yeah. Reduce women. Yeah.
I think the hierarchy of control here is referring to occupational health, where you control hazards at source through the hierarchy of control. So it's elimination, substitution, engineering, administrative, and then at the bottom is PPE, because PPE is the most difficult to get people to actually comply, even if they have access to it, and even if it's well fitted. You then have, you know, hot climates, you have difficulties with people wearing it, and sometimes it's expensive. So the hierarchy of control is more, it's got nothing to do with actually the hierarchy in terms of workers, but actually trying to remove the hazard at source. And so if you can't ensure that people can wear their PPE, then it's important to actually eliminate the most hazardous pesticides rather than trying, you know, to get people to wear PPE. That's the thinking behind it.
Oh, okay. But even if you get rid of the most hazardous pesticides, the least hazardous pesticides also must be, people must protect themselves against. That's my recommendation, because there's no pesticide that will not cause any damage to a human being. Even if they are considered mild and maybe not dangerous, there's no pesticide that cannot be dangerous. Because if it's killing pests, and pests are in the animal kingdom, there's got to be some linkage somewhere for scientists out there. There has to be a way that they affect a human being. Maybe in a mild way, maybe causing a rash on the skin. But still, I would prefer that a person, you know, training, awareness creation, and then requiring that every person that turns up to work in that area is donned properly in PPE. I know adherence is very low sometimes, but again, we can use a little bit of force to enforce it at the workplace. If you are not wearing them, then you are not given a job. Removal of hazards at source is always the best option. Pregnant women or women in their childbearing years should be sufficiently protected by either adjusting their work category or ensure they do not apply. Yeah, but there are situations where they cannot be removed. There are situations where the woman needs the money and she will do anything to be able to get that money. So there are situations where women don't have a choice. So we must think of plan B, whether in a situation like that one. And plan B is to ensure that she has adequate information and also protective wear.
So we have our last poll for question 1. What kind of support do female farmers need to reduce their specific exposure risk to pesticides? And I think it's important when you post your thinking that you're quite specific. So, for example, lots of people have been saying training or awareness raising, but who's supposed to do the training? And where is the funding going to come from for the training? It's, you know, there's a lot of resources involved in training. It's a lot easier to eliminate a highly hazardous pesticide than to get PPE and training. So, so here we have regulations for banning HHPs. So who needs to do those regulations? Governments, for example. So be specific in your responses. Thank you, everyone.
The regulations for banning HPP is a responsibility of government. Government is a duty bearer. And you see, if government is human rights based, it will respect, it will protect its people. And then it will fulfill its obligation towards its citizens. So regulations are always put in place by government. someone says Ethiopia having safe jobs to get sustainable incomes. I don't know about that one. I don't know whether I can comment on that. Yeah, but I know that government, someone is saying government must provide maternity leave for women who are pregnant and work in pesticide industry. Yeah, government provides maternity leave for all women who work under their jurisdiction, but has also legislated that every woman that works should get maternity leave of about 3 months. Education by government and industry policies by government, financial support by government. Yeah, education by government. You see, the government, it's in their docket. They can require all the private sector who are involved in agriculture that uses pesticides to pay an extra tax. You know, which tax will go towards training, which tax will go towards mitigating, you know, things like that. It's only the government that can do that. Stringent monitoring and evaluation, populations with high number, yes. Promotion of integrated pest management, yes, that one true. Is also very true. Provision of PP, provision of training and awareness. Female farmers need to be represented by their governing bodies in management to communicate their strategies. Yeah, I think that's a good observation. Pesticides are using pesticide dermatology, capacity building trainings. Yeah, majority of them we can aggregate. They all agree about the training. Female farmers need to be represented by their governing bodies. Yeah, okay, the female farmers, also it's a responsibility of those people who are using pesticides to form, for instance, unions, workers' unions. It's important so that they can negotiate. Organizing is very, very important to be able to negotiate, to be able to bargain.
I don't know if you need the screen to scroll a bit more or if you've seen everything.
Yeah. Banning of production of endocrine disrupting chemicals. Yes, that's another measure. Endocrine disruptors, they've been banned in several countries, and the ban should be enforced. Understanding the exposure risk to be able to mitigate them. Yes, that falls under training. To be able to understand the exposure risks, you've got to have all the information you need.
So Gertrude, who do you think is responsible for conducting training? Everyone keeps mentioning training, but it requires a lot of funding and resources. Who's responsible for training?
Yeah, several actors. The government can enforce a tax, can require organizations that are into pesticide use to pay a certain tax that will go towards facilitating the trainers. And then they can contract trainers who are well versed with social inclusion, gender equality and social inclusion, and also pesticides. Because now, when they are training, they've got to give accurate information about the effects of a certain pesticide. So people who are good in those chemistry, in chemistry, and then those who are good in gender and social inclusion, then they contract them as consultants to conduct their training. But then the farmers themselves also have a responsibility organize themselves into what is akin to a workers' union, so that they can speak with one voice and demand that so that the training is demand driven. So there are several actors. Government has a role, farmers have a role. Okay, government the companies that are doing it, the companies also who are employing women have a role.
Thank you, Gertrude, for your thoughts. We've got 2 more minutes left before we're going to move on to the next question. So if you want to just continue commenting, or if there are any concluding points that you'd like to make, please go ahead.
Well, thanks so much. I've got the details down. Okay, I think adopting extended producer's responsibility. Well, like I've said before, I see a wealth of knowledge on this platform. I think I've been preaching to the converted. Majority of you already know a lot and are making very good suggestions. And I think all these, when consolidated, they are going to put us on a pathway for solutions. Yeah, thank you very much. But it's been very good for me to interact with such brains. I've learned quite a lot from your submissions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gertrude, and thank you for your time and your thoughts and your ideas about so many important issues linked to promoting a more gendered approach to managing pesticide risks. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thanks. And I hope you'll continue to stay on if you can. So we're going to move on to Maïmouna, who's going to take us through the background to the second question and the second question. However, the presentation will be in French. So you should see at the bottom of your screen, I'm not seeing it yet. There we go. At the bottom of your screen is a button that says interpretation. If you are an English speaker, please click on English. And if you are a French speaker, please click on French. Maïmouna will speak in French, but there will be English translation. And she will also comment to your what you post in French, and there will be translation provided also in the chat. So Maïmouna, I'm going to ask you to please turn on your video and open your mic, and you can introduce yourself again. And thank you very much for taking time. Nice to see you. You just need to unmute yourself. There you go. We can't hear you. yeah. What
Hi
happened?
all, I'm just going to pause the interpretation. I'm sorry, I don't know what's happened, but Maïmouna, we can hear you well, so you can continue. I'm going to restart it now.
Okay. It was working, so it'll be great. Okay, so it's back. We ask everyone again, click on English or French, depending on which language you prefer to hear the translation in. And we will have Eunice translating into English. So please go ahead, Maïmouna. We should be able to hear now. Natasha, are you hearing to go to the next slide? Thank you. We are still hearing French, though. Natasha, next slide. We are now hearing Maïmouna as well. My apologies. We are trying a new system here, and it is having some quirks. So we are hearing Maïmouna again in the English sector. So I don't know if Natasha, if you can just indicate what Maïmouna has to click on so that we don't hear her. Thank you very much, Maïmouna, and thank you very much to Eunice, who was translating very eloquently to those of us who were listening in English. So if we can have the next slide, we are going to move on to the question. So we have about 12 minutes left. And so let's move straight into the question: how can gender equality and women's empowerment support the sound management of pesticides? So the question is in the chat, and we encourage you to respond to it. And Maïmouna, you can also then respond to anything that comes up. I suggest we move on to the first poll as well, while people are busy responding. So same procedure. If you click on the link in the chat for Mentimeter, how do gender roles influence disproportionate pesticide risk exposures? You can respond to that as well. And then I'll hand it back over to Maïmouna to respond. Natasha, I'm not sure if the poll is working because I think people are posting, and for some reason the responses aren't coming through. Oh, there we go. Now they are. Thank you. You're welcome to unmute yourself, Maïmouna, if you'd like to respond.
Ok. Bon, on peut voir que dans le pool de réponses, là, on a beaucoup, les gens quand même, les participants ont abordé l'inégalité en termes d'accès et de droit sur l'information et les ressources. Je pense que c'est une réalité parce que si les femmes sont autonomisées, ou bien s'il y a l'égalité de genre, les femmes pourraient avoir un accès plus favorable, plus rapide à la formation, à l'information et aux ressources. En général, si ces femmes rurales agricultrices sont analphabètes ou n'ont pas pu avoir une éducation à la hauteur, donc elles ne pourraient pas avoir un accès à l'information, soit sur les étiquettes, sur les pesticides, sur le niveau d'utilisation, sur comment faire le mélange.
Sorry, I'm sorry to stop you. We don't have interpretation. So, Natasha, are you going to put an interpretation back, or does Maïmouna need to speak in English?
Sorry, I've put interpretation back on. So, Eunice, you can also start with interpretation.
Apologies for that. Please do proceed. If you want to hear it in English, please click on English under interpretation. And if you want to hear it in French, please click on French. Thank you. You can In interest of time, we've moved on to the last poll question. If you can list some national and international initiatives that promote gender activities in pesticide management, and if you can include your country. Thank you.
Thanks.
Maïmouna, there are still comments in the chat if you want to have a look at those as well, and if there's any that you'd like to respond to. They've been going on simultaneous with the poll. It's nice to see that there's a gender and pesticide management project in Zimbabwe. I don't know if there's a website that could be posted in the chat. It would be nice to see what exactly this project is doing. Thank you for that. I can't tell, Maïmouna, if you're talking or not, but Eunice, we are not getting any translation. Thanks, Maïmouna. We've got 1 minute left, so I wondered if you want any last concluding statements before I close this session. Thank you very much, and thank you for taking us through a very rich discussion. I'd like to thank both Gertrude and Maïmouna for their time. I'd also like to thank all of you who have participated in the discussion today and made it very rich. I'd also like to thank Diene and Eunice, who were in the background. Eunice, who was doing the verbal translation, thank you very much for that. And Diene, who was doing the written translation in the chat. This is the first time we've tried to do the 2 translations simultaneously, and it seems to work. So thank you very much for all the effort. Just a reminder that when you leave Zoom, there will be an evaluation that pops up. We do appreciate if you could take a moment to fill that in. And lastly, that we will have our next discussion on the 16th of November, which will look at identifying levers to enable less chemical-dependent agricultural systems. So please put it in your diaries, and I hope you'll join us then. We will have the digest from this discussion, and we'll also have the presentation and the recording. So make sure that you have joined and that you are a member of the Pesticide Discussion Forum. The link will be posted again in the chat so that you receive this. And also, please do make sure you sign up for our pesticide newsletters that we send out more frequently than the pesticide discussion so that you can keep up with the latest research and opportunities. I wish you all a good rest of your day wherever you are. Thanks very much, and bye for now.